Welcome to Beyond the Horizon, the podcast where we explore the cutting-edge strategies shaping the future of the managed services industry. In today's episode, I'm joined by Enable head nerd Joe Ferla and Senior Product Manager Mike Weaver as we take a deep dive into the challenges and opportunities presented by managing IT across a hybrid landscape, providing insight into how MSPs can navigate the complexities of cloud, on-prem, and everything in between. Welcome to the Beyond the Horizons podcast. This week I'm joined by head nerd Joe Ferla and Senior Product Manager Michael Weaver. Joe, do you just want to give our listeners a brief overview of your background and nerd remit?
Yeah, so I've been here at Enable for about 7 years and worked my way up through most of what I guess we could call customer-facing positions outside of support. But currently, I sit as the head nerd of obviously the cloud and tools, which is Cloud Commander, Passportal, MSP Manager, MailAssure, but I also double as the Insight RMM, Mac, and analytics and operational efficiency head nerd. So kind of the generalist, if you will.
Mike, what's your background and certainly your focus at Enable?
Yeah, so here at Enable, I'm in a group product manager role, helping design the future of Cloud Commander, really focusing on helping our MSPs with their multi Microsoft 365 tenants, managing multiple tenants at the same time, and advising our MSPs on how to do that effectively and scale their business at the same time.
And you're a former Microsoft MVP as well, aren't you?
Former, I did walk away from that this year, but I think you're it forever. But yeah, I really did enjoy that program. But I was MVP for a bit in the Microsoft 365 apps and services category.
Excellent. Well, anyway, so the reason I'm bringing you two together really is to talk about this idea of RMM and the cloud and hybrid environments. In many ways, one of the more sort of surprising stats that came back from our MSP Horizons report earlier this year was that despite the rise in cloud infrastructure, MSPs still see a strong need for traditional on-premises RMM, at least for the foreseeable future. So let's direct this first question at Joe. Is this something that we're seeing reflected in the market in terms of our partners?
Yeah, I think as much as we as MSPs understand the benefits of bringing everybody to the cloud or the benefits of that transition, we are, as a market, realizing there's a couple notable verticals where on-prem is just going to be what we have to deal with. You look at maybe verticals that deal with hypersensitive information combined with maybe a little bit of lack of technology, like something like the medical field. I've talked to a number of our partners who handle manufacturing clientele. There's no getting them to the cloud, right? When you're running your CNC mill off of a 2003 server, Microsoft 2003 server, there's no cloud for you. So what I've seen more and more, rather than, I guess I would say, a market trend, it's a vertical trend where MSPs are having to look at quite closely what is the security risk of the people that they are, or the organizations that they are supporting. What is their need technology wise? What is their tolerance for downtime? What is their tolerance for making this move and then making an educated decision on top of it?
And Mike, do you have anything to kind of add to what Joe's saying?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. You kind of see the camps dividing more and more, and hybrid certainly is there, but you do see a lot of firms trying to push into full cloud and formally walk away. But there's a huge market that, and Joe highlighted, the two that I would list too as the most common. The other thing to point out is expense. We as MSPs, we have a lot of customers that are very cost aware. They're still getting, that investment out. There's some fear that if I go full cloud services, I'm going to be locked into all these contracts and make it really unaffordable, where I've got assets and entitlements that are, I can still monetize and use, or not monetize but still use them. So I think there's still an aspect of concern of getting onto that subscription bandwagon and spiraling costs out of control. Whereas I purchase, a laptop for 3 years, I accept that, or 5 years or wherever, and the software I put on it, I purchase. So I hear that time and time again for the partners and their clients that want to stay on prem.
I mean, having said that, there is no denying that the cloud infrastructure is becoming increasingly prevalent. I suppose the next question, really off the back of that, is, and I'll direct this to Mike, is how has RMM evolved really to stay relevant in a cloud first world, and what changes have been made and need to be made really to keep up with this, I suppose, cloud and hybrid model.
So I think from my perspective, addressing environments that are mixed, that's probably the number one thing that's had to have been addressed, particularly for MSPs that have, both of these very valid customer bases. In terms of future, I think you're seeing this real pressure for, and this is driving a lot of the Ecoverse strategy and Enable. We're talking high level here, not marketing, but that's a reaction from our product group, is really trying to get ready for, giving RMM as much visibility beyond just the device. Joe's tired of, I always say this on calls with clients, but why can't I log in? Devices don't call help desks, don't email tickets, users do. So I think, that evolving in direction is what you're going to see. Is if I'm looking at a device, I need to know, okay, is that user just blocked from logging in somewhere? So I think those are good examples of where we're going. Joe, what are your thoughts? So that's kind of what I see us doing, and trying to react to that.
In kind of the move to the Ecoverse, and this kind of evolution of RMM, I definitely see where you're coming from with it, and I think that kind of like granular day-to-day usage is something we need to evolve to. Our technicians and our partners here at Enable time and time again have come to us with these little, actually I shouldn't say little, these like operational efficiency time saving suggestions that really could improve their day to day, that really could take their technicians to the next level when we're looking at them from a KPI or from a metric standpoint. The other thing I really see and I really like with this push to Ecoverse, or this push to more of an all-encompassing um, RMM, if you even want to call it that, I should say platform, is through the mid 90s, 2000s, and even through the 2010s, a big push for MSPs was, I want to stop managing so many platforms. I want to integrate everything together. I want one single pane of glass. And the market and the vendors inside that market did fight to get there. But since COVID, since probably about 2015, we have found it almost impossible to provide that single pane of glass. You've got your RMM, you've got maybe backup in there, maybe your security tool set, but then you look at your password management, you look at your PSA or ticketing solution, you look at your CRM wherever that lives, you look at all of these satellite tools, to where no matter what vendor you're with, it's impossible for us to give you a single pane of glass. Sure, checks and tasks and API and all that could do some of it, but it doesn't give us that holistic realm. And with the rise in things like Power Automate being able to optimize your workflows, with AI being able to perform incredibly complex data analytics in one fell swoop, these are the tools we need to give our MSPs. Why do we as a vendor get the ability to run data analytics to determine where support structure needs to be set, where our sales and marketing needs to be pushed? We need to push that capability down to our MSPs, so it becomes not just tech support and engineering, utilizing this wealth of knowledge and this wealth of information that they have in their platform, right? Bringing everything into this one communicative and reportable platform gives these MSPs the ability to bring sales and marketing, to bring billing, to bring, more of their operations into their platform, and allows them to make decisions. Even if it's something as simple as identifying a gap of, this client doesn't have DNS filter, they're stuck on a more old school traditional web protection, or these folks need this particular feature of EDR to meet their compliance items, right? And I am a huge fan of that getting into the MSP space, especially because I think as MSPs, wallet share and retention is something that we might have lost focus on, and it's by far and away the easiest way to maintain and grow revenue, right? You already have these clients' trust, build off it, gain wallet share, right? Going for market share is expensive. Find the simple, the easy, the layups, if you will. And I don't know if that's something that uh, over in the PM world, Mike, you guys have been discussing, but I've certainly heard it from, like, say, the David Weeks side and that kind of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we start talking about the, ecoverse and delivering that, making that easy, and the items you described, that's a really key part of enabling MSP businesses to grow while securing them, which is, we always talk about how important it is to secure our clients, but that's also protecting your clients, right? That's protecting your own business, and market reputation. And the more visibility and control you get in the security space, the more you're protecting your own MSP business and your clients, all together. And I think that's something that a lot of people lose track of.
And so this kind of, I suppose, this kind of falls into a way we're talking about how RMM can potentially evolve in the future, or how it evolves in a way to protect itself, which is that, so the concept of it becoming the RMM itself becoming more of a data aggregator than anything else, I guess. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the RMM becoming a data aggregator, or this platform becoming the data aggregator, that's definitely a large portion of what we want. But we still don't have the world where we can move away from what we're traditionally doing in the RMM, right? It's still the easiest access point we have for things like take control, or remote access, or remote command line access, right? It's the easiest place for us to look at bringing other features and functions and capabilities that I are going to heavily influence what we do in the cloud, right? If we look at a singular platform, do I really want to connect it with Microsoft, or would I rather have a tool or a solution that can bring Intune directly into that dashboard, bring Azure and some day-to-day service we can provide into that platform, bring user management into that platform? Because again, we're looking at lowering those walls of segregation. And if I can take all of the wicked fun and cool stuff I can do with automation and deployment and management through my RMM, and then connect that with Intune, or connect that with user management, I love seeing that. So I don't think the RMM is going to go anywhere. It's just like we saw in 2000, 2005. We're just going to be adding something to it, and that's this. Back then it was the big push for automation. Now it's kind of twofold. It's the big push for AI and cloud.
And just to kind of, I'm just going to pivot slightly in terms of the sort of direction of questioning. I mean, one of the other things that I've sort of kind of heard rumors of, at least, or seen various reports floating around, is that we've seen people shifting workloads back from the cloud and moving back to on premises, for whether it's kind of security cost reasons or whatever. But why do you think this is why do you think this is happening? Is this just a temporary adjustment, or something that's kind of indicates a more permanent kind of like concerns for the industry, Mike?
I think it depends on your operating climate of your customers. The challenge is Joe mentioned AI. If you want to use Copilot on your desk, or your client wants to use OpenAI or whatever the preference is, that's really difficult to do if your data is not stored in a central way. If you don't have the right data storage, you can't make your own data work for you. But obviously, if that customer is suddenly going to have, FedRAMP business or other business, then I think there's some tactical reasons to make that move. But I think as people see more and more where things are, data storage is really going to be the key driver for these clients and how they want to use and leverage their data and protect it. That's going to be the driving force. So I think it's only for certain situations, good planning on why, I need to bring my data back on site because I'm starting with because I want to go after some FedRAMP business. And for whatever reason, that's easier for the MSP to do to support that customer, some valid reasons. But I think more and more are going to continue to trend in the other direction because of the data storage element.
I was going to say the data storage, especially when it comes to things like disaster recovery as a service,
Mm.
right? We're moving that to the cloud just because it's easier. Not saying having an on-prem box or appliance isn't good. We've seen it tried, trusted, and proven in the past. So when we look at, you mentioned FedRAMP, right? Those clients probably still going to have that on-prem appliance storing a lot of their mission critical information and data just because it's a necessity for continuity,
Mm.
right? But then you look, if we're working with FedRAMP, we're probably dealing with GCC high, right? And working out of the cloud. So even though we're seeing this move back on-prem, I don't think we're ever going to see a move to totally on-prem anymore. It's
Mm.
always going to be a hybrid environment,
Mm.
unless you need an active dev and you can come with a bulletproof business case, right? Like, I have to have this particular subset of my organization air gapped because of security, right?
Mm.
I have to have this entire entity air gapped because they're doing some type of government controlled research and development, and it cannot talk to the outside world ever, not once, not ever, right? So I feel while we're seeing this trend, even in, we'll go back to the two most common medical and manufacturing environments. We're seeing not quite a move to on-prem. We're seeing a move to a more truly hybrid
Mm.
Mm.
environment.
Yeah, and I think too, nearly every regulation has a path to a cloud service, right?
Hmm.
FedRAMP's a good example. It's is it affordable, and what's the quickest, and affordable way to comply with that regulation? And for some, that is, Joe mentioned air gapping.
Mm.
There's no such thing as a GDPR certified setting, right? That doesn't exist. It's I must comply with these controls in GDPR. I must comply with these controls, and insert regulatory body here. Um, I can do that through three simple ways or three not simple ways. But sometimes if I'm a business of five, can I access some of these environments that meet the regulatory environment that I'm operating in? Okay, no, then maybe it does make sense for me to bring that back on site. So I just want to be clear because some people sometimes knee jerk react of, okay, I got to go after this business. I'm going back because it's familiar, it's on prem. There is a path, but it's whether it makes sense for the situation or not.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think that's something really good to bring up as well, especially around cost and future investments, right? More and more have I realized one of the many traits that separates a truly successful MSP from maybe not the most successful MSP is that they understand a business plan that's a year out is running your business. A business plan that's 5 years out, that's pretty good. A business plan that is 7 to 10 years out, that's great. And you'll see more and more as we move in that length of business plan, those clients or those MSPs or service providers in any type of IT service providing are utilizing the cloud more, even though it may be more expensive up front, it may be more labor intensive up front. There is going to be savings there. There is going to be ease of management there. You just got to think far enough down the path, not do I want to land this client? It's how am I going to retain them in the future, right? Nobody's the smartest person in the room. There's always going to be a smarter MSP coming along, right?
Mm.
We need to focus on how can we retain that client long term. And typically the simple and easy solution, outside of some exceptions, is not the rule we go with. We need to think about, 5, 7 years down the road in these business plans, but also inside the relationships we have with our clientele. The thing that makes the MSP space so good is we have the flexibility, we have the capability, we have the resources to not only evolve with the times, we have the ability to evolve ahead of the times, right?
Mm.
And successful MSPs have time and time again proven that they do that,
Mm.
right? We're not a clunky internal IT behemoth of a machine, right? They're adopting our services because we are leading the market in how we're providing those services.
So I suppose that kind of naturally, in a way, leads to the question, the next question I was going to ask, which directed to Joe, really is so, if we assume that hybrid, at least as we can see it for the next 7 to 10 years, it's going to be the way things are run. How does this change MSP's approaches, and how do that? What does it mean? We need to be looking at adopting a different type of tool sets and strategies, or is it just a kind of evolution, really?
I I think in my mind it's kind of twofold. I'm always one to push for standardization of service delivery, right? If each of your clients gets something a little bit different in service delivery, it makes life hard for our techs, right? If I have 3 packages of varying levels of service delivery that all are standardized across my clientele, I make my technicians' lives easier. So when we talk about evolving that service delivery, right, I want to manage by exception, not by client.
Mm.
So I think while we're going to see an evolution of service delivery as a whole, I don't quite want to see an evolution of service delivery that forces us to evolve in, say, the 3 packages I sell are high, low, and medium security, but then I'm gonna
Mm.
have high security on-prem, high security hybrid, high security cloud,
Mm.
minimum security hybrid cloud on-prem, mid security, high, medium, and, that just that's too much.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when we're looking at keeping our businesses agile and we're looking at keeping our businesses expanding, be it market share or be it wallet share. That expansion is always going to bring on more volume, and we've got to find a way to keep our capacity ahead of that volume. So, yes, there are going to be some things that we evolve, but I don't think it's going to be hybrid really differentiating itself in large ways from a cloud or on-prem. And there's tools out there that can help with this, right? To toot and Abel's horn, we have Cloud Commander, but there's various others out there in the market. Um, that could be something like SIP. It could be something like a more complicated MDM through Intune and some of the additional tools you can add on there, right? There's always going to be a way for us to look at evolving that solution set to build in some of that evolution, but I really want to see standardization more than anything.
Mm.
Unless, again, of course, you bring me a good business case. Bring me a good business case. I'll always respond to that. But if your business case is, well, this client's on-prem and this client's hybrid, the users are dealing with the same threats. The users are dealing with the same problems. They probably 99% of the same checks. They just do something a little bit different, right? If I'm monitoring a VM for performance, my performance monitoring check isn't quite building in a project. It's just telling me I need to put more juice there. If it's on-prem, okay, I get a project, right? Same means, little bit different ends, but it's still standardizing what I'm providing day-to-day service delivery. And I hope that makes sense, because I think that's a key we need, especially since a lot of this market is still in that emerging realm, to understand as we're trying to take that market and that wallet share.
Mm, mm, mm. Mike, do you have anything to sort of add to this?
I think what we have to remember, hybrid has larger attack surface. Joe's point on standardization um, is 100% valid, but where that really comes together is that attack surface. So as an MSP, if I want to, really secure these environments, some of the easiest, I can't ignore the cloud world. We talked about that, right? But what I can do is focus on a delivery and program to protect consistent cloud assets and protect my clients that way. So I think if I were, doing my own MSP services, a lot of my customers I would be having that conversation with. I can integrate a MDR solution or these other things in a more consistent manner. Joe's point on my help desk technicians can be there, but we've been doing this really good tabletop security exercises on our road shows, to prepare for a security incident. And they always come in from help desk tickets, right? The first indicator that something's wrong is usually a help desk ticket. Well, if I have the same products, my help desk technicians are going to identify these issues that much faster because they've had this training and this inkling to go, this isn't just a standard password reset. This could be the start of something bad. So I think that's just the only thing to add is hybrid has additional attack surface, additional customization. You can protect it, but if you're trying to protect 100 clients at once, you're helping your clients more by giving them that standardization, except in situations where you can't, right? There's valid cases, but really trying to limit those.
And I do think that kind of leads naturally into a point too, that I've been at least trying to push for folks who are managing these hybrid environments, but looking at adopting that very standardized service offering method. And that's the minute you see hybrid, you're no longer low security. That's off the table, right? You need to be thinking, the more complex the environment, the higher the security risk. Now, am I going to put a hybrid financial office on the same level as a hybrid manufacturing firm? No. Finance is obviously going to be high security, right? Manufacturing might be mid security. But I think coming into that with the understanding of, Mike, you're 100% correct. Attack surface equals risk level at its base core, right? You not only think about just the expansion of the technological, you know, attack surface, just look at the end users and the amount of control that's added for them in a hybrid environment. And help desk tickets, I think, hit it right on the head. We know security problems are happening probably 30 to 40% of the time, which is a huge number, by the way, because of the end user and the gap between the chair and the keyboard going, oh, pick your expletive. I just did this.
Starting to round this up a little bit. I mean, and so this is a natural kind of sort of extension of what we've been talking about, really. But and I'll direct this to you initially, Mike. Is like, what features and innovations would you expect to see in future RMM tools that that will help them or enable them to really better handle this hybrid future?
So I think a lot of what we're going to see when we think of RMM is device is the center of the RMM platform. And I think what you're going to see is device is a serious part of the RMM platform,
Mm.
but that's no longer good enough. So you're going to see more and more of these other, user objects and the, tenant security settings and backup systems and all this coming together. So I think the transformation to get ready for is the device is a key part of that, especially, I need to remote control the user's device. I'm going to start on the device screen, right? But
Mm.
it's not going to be the focus, I think, as much as it is today. You're going to see these other items coming into play because, my quote is devices don't call help desks.
Mm.
Users
Right.
don't call, users do, but tenants also don't call help desks. What I mean? But it's bringing that story together to help with all of the tiers and life cycle of managing the cloud. And I hate just saying it that without qualifying it, but managing that entire user device experience, that's what's going to change and evolve here. So that's, I think, where you're going to see with the Ecoverse vision that all coming together. And in
Mm.
product, that's our life right now. That's our
Mm.
focus. Our focus
Mm.
is delivering on that dream of I don't even want to say single pane of glass, but that experience, so that you're being very efficient. You're seeing risk and being able to react and get guidance on it as quickly as possible.
We've had this conversation with multiple partners here at Enable, but we've had it, amongst PM and that kind of deal as well. I love hearing what they're saying because I always talk about standardization. I always talk about repeatability and scalability. If I hear tenant level management, that tells me I just got X amount more scalable because now I don't have to run checks on each individual device that checks these individual settings or pull information about user permissions by each individual user, right? If I can access tenant or global or even MSP wide policies, that's music to my ears. Mike might as well be up on a mountaintop praising hallelujah because I think that is one of the best things I've heard when we go back to what are we doing with our packages? What are we doing with our end user experience? What are we doing with day-to-day service delivery? Right? This impacts it so heavily and it takes so much off of, I don't want to say our technicians and engineers' plates, but I don't have a better way to describe it. Right? If I don't have to worry about everybody's each individual permissions because I know I have something managing it at the tenant level, my tier 1 tech just got the ability to now spend 30 minutes a day continual learning. That to me is incredibly valuable because now I can support that tier 1 tech becoming tier 2. And I'm building loyalty because now there's this path for my technicians to grow, evolve, and expand inside my organization. I can lessen tech or employee turnover, which is just great in today's day and age, right? We look at what happens with service delivery. My customers are happier because everything is known,
Mm.
right? They know when they see this problem, don't worry, Mike's already got it covered, right? Or I already have it covered. And I think that's something that MSPs tend to, I don't want to say lose, but gloss over when we look at this evolution of how our technology is going.
So let's kind of close this out, really, I suppose. And so, final thoughts, and let's keep this focused on what advice would you really give MSPs that are looking to stay competitive in this hybrid landscape? Let's start with Joe.
So I think the advice that I have in this hybrid landscape or this cloud landscape kind of breaks away from service delivery and what I would do with technicians and what I would do with a piece of technology and kind of broadens out into the market as a whole, right? If you've ever heard David Weeks give his Red Ocean, Blue Ocean speech,
Mm.
um, I think a lot of this hits the nail right on the head where the MSP market is very saturated. There's a lot of us out there. Nobody knows what an MSP really is. Go search MSP on Google, you come up with Cisco, and they're a food delivery service,
Mm,
right?
mm,
But as we move towards this specialization in the cloud and specialization in hybrid environment management and specialization in whatever services are going to come along with this, remove MSP. I am a cloud management and service providing expert. I am specifically hybrid environment dedicated, right? Or expert, right? I am a backup or security or an education and training expert, right? Where you can now market more towards your end user specific needs, and you can now market more towards what they're looking for, because I think our end users are becoming more intelligent, they're becoming more informed, but they're not informed enough to go, okay, I need a hybrid environment service provider or security provider. I'm going to look for an MSSP or an MSP. But what they are going to Google is hybrid environment security. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. Who's there?
mm.
Right? And MSP is not going to show up on that Google search. So my advice is to keep yourself gaining the resources and keep yourself gaining the necessary funds or technologies or whatever to make this evolution. Start differentiating yourself in your market, right? Grab that market share before anybody else does, and you'll have the ability to start taking everything on the technical side that we've talked about and putting it into practice, or on the operation side and putting it into practice. Because if you fall behind, somebody else is taking that market share, and it's it's very difficult to gain it back.
Mike, thoughts?
The two things that I would focus on are both related to security. I think it is the most important thing that you can do to protect your business and your clients, as I said earlier. I think building a standard security posture for your customers is one of the most important things that you can do. And not taking no for an answer in general on changes to that. Not having MFA exceptions, not having, things. I mean, obviously you will if you have to have a certain system and so on, really limiting that. And the other thing that I highly recommend is to pitch our roadshow is to do security response exercises in your organization with not just your team members, but also your key clients, doing an exercise with them so everybody knows on the dark day, if there's a dark day where you have an InfoSec incident, everybody knows their role, everyone knows what they're going to do, and everyone knows how to react. And I think that's the only way an MSP can survive an InfoSec incident with a client is, you know what, it was bad, but they did everything they could to prevent it, and they were right there with me to help resolve it the best that we could.
Mm,
So
mm.
that's my real focus and my advice for MSPs right now.
I think I think the tabletop thing is definitely something that's probably worth a podcast episode on its own. I think. But Joe, you were about to
Yeah,
say something.
if I could keep in mind when Mike's talking about these tabletops and Mike's talking about practicing our security response, I tend to also recommend with it, where you can, test your tech too, right? Don't just sit there at a round table and theory your way through this.
Mm,
If it's a ransomware event that you're seeing, test your recovery. If it's some type of identity crisis that we're seeing, test your remediation of that, right? Don't don't just talk through these things. And I think the tabletops are exceptionally good for getting us as MSPs or as security providers to know where we're going to have complicated processes come in, but set the expectation for your client, right? Or for your technicians. This isn't going to be a 30-minute deal, right? We're going to pretend there's ransomware. Our RTO inside our disaster recovery as a service contract says we're going to be up in about 30 minutes. Our SLA is 2 hours, right? Make sure you can hit those numbers. These events are not easy to deal with, right? My joke to MSPs is if you have a physical office, you have to practice a fire drill, and that's walking in a single file line out a door. Maybe steps are included. 2 things, right? Our security responses are 50, 60, 100 steps deep. Make sure you're not just going through the words, and make sure you're not just going through what your behaviors may be. Do them as well, because I think security tabletops are invaluable. I think putting the proof to the pudding with motion is invaluable as well.
Well, I'm going to close it there, only because I don't want to get too far dragged down the tabletops episode. But definitely, an episode on tabletops will be coming to your chosen streaming platform soon. But guys, thank you very much for joining me. And for those listening, if you've enjoyed this, please go and check out other episodes of the Beyond the Horizons podcast, which you will find in the links below wherever you're viewing or listening to this particular episode. But for the meantime, again, Mike, Joe, thank you so much for your time. Fascinating subject as ever.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. It was fun.